Well, guess what? This is us. We are not AI. We are not AI. And the reason why we're going to talk about that is because the mention of AI happened in the Paul Caneiro case today. But we've got other people here to talk about that later on, because when we start, there's a really great guest coming on, Michael Bryant.
Yeah. So we'll be talking Uvalde, obviously Caneiro, and Caneiro is a case of maybe what you don't do. We cover cases for a lot of reasons. Caneiro may be the one we use as an example of what not to do. But more importantly, in the YSL case, there is something new, interesting. We talked about it last week, and today we have someone else to talk about it, about one of the people that came up in that earlier conversation. Am I making any sense at all?
Justice, where are you? Michael and Linda are here.
I love you, Linda.
What is justice? Will we ever find justice?
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
Justice when we see it. To be and Damila lead the way. Hoping justice will win the day. It's Nary Clues, finding justice where we can. Join us now, we're on the run. Justice is waiting, we'll see it done.
Hey, welcome there, partner. Good to have everybody along for a Thursday edition of Justice Served TV. So last week, when you were doing your Harvard thing, we had Doug Weinstein on. Of course, every time he's on, no matter what the case we might be talking about is, YSL comes up. Part of last week's conversation was young thug Jeffrey Williams finally getting all of the goodies back that the county had been holding on to. Because
all the goodies except for one missing.
Well, the Richard that doesn't exist.
Watch.
Apparently, that doesn't exist except on video. Anyway, so in that conversation, people started thinking, and I was asking Doug. I said, Mounk Tounk was probably the one, when all the dust settled in the YSL case, that has suffered the most and continues to suffer. And so people were starting to ask, well, where is he? What's going on? What's happening? And you thought, well, maybe there's a good way to find that out. And we happen to have this gentleman in the chat quite often. And so we thought, let's bring him on. Let's bring this dude on. And my first question, Jim, is why so angry?
Happily, right? And so angry? His hashtag, everybody, is at Happily Angry Esquire. Give him a follow on X, formerly Twitter. And I was so excited to see you, Jim, in the chat last week that I was like, oh, come on, we have to get you on. So today I really made a concerted effort. You were it. That was it. You're the only person I went after.
Yeah, it's great to be on. Doug's definitely a tough act to follow, but I'll do my best. And I'm angry. I made that Twitter handle. I didn't intend to tweet. I just wanted to follow some cases. But then, some stuff went down in YSL. And it made me a little angry.
Yeah.
But then I was, happy to fight the good fight. So I was happy and angry. And unfortunately, I'm also a lawyer. So that was the third part.
Okay, so
perfect sense then.
Why don't you? I could play, and I have it geared up. The revocation here, but why don't, before we do that, why don't you set us up? Who is Mounk? Right? What's his real name? Mm-hmm. What's his relationship with the YSL case? Mm-hmm. And why are we talking about him? Why are we so interested in him? And why did he get such a raw deal? Where he still is having such a raw deal? Our viewers are going to be really surprised about this one.
Man, that's a lot to get.
I know. It's like an ABC.
Objection, compound.
Yes, his real name is Antonio Sledge. He's from Atlanta. He, let me see. He was friends with Young Thug's, mostly Young Thug's older siblings. Young Thug's Jeffrey Williams is one of the younger siblings. So he was friends, I believe, mostly with some of the older siblings. And that's how he came to know Young Thug. He worked briefly for the label. And I think it was like 2015, 2016 when they were starting out. He was, I don't know how much to go into the weeds here.
Go to the weeds. Let's refresh everybody. Let's refresh everyone.
He took an Alfred plea on a case in 2015. That's mostly.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
It means basically you enter a guilty plea because it's in your best interests. You're not saying I actually did this. You're just saying, there's enough evidence to convict, and I don't want to go to trial because, as we all know, going to trial is being found guilty means you're going to get the sentence at the top of the range. His reasoning was that he had 2 co-defendants, and they completely differed in their stories, but they both said that he was there with them. So that's why I took the offer plea. That he did a 2-year sentence on that case, and then that was the basis for bringing him into the YSL case. They're saying that case was part of a broader conspiracy. You're part of the YSL gang, and that case was also part of the YSL gang activity. So now we're going to charge you a second time, basically, on those same acts.
Right. And that's what they were doing. That's what the state was doing, right? They were taking previous pleas and then putting them into the RICO Act and said, "Oh, now we'll just try you again." And the prosecutors were one of our favorites, Adrian Love, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
He also had an overt act, accused him of wearing pants.
Excuse me. What?
Yeah. So
is that first degree felony, or what is that?
I mean, not wearing pants is also a problem, but somebody took a picture of him in pants wearing, and the pants said OTS, which supposedly stands for only the slime. And somebody else had a caption with a green snake emoji on Instagram. So somebody posted a picture of him on Instagram wearing pants, and that was an overt act in furtherance of the criminal conspiracy.
Since we do Fashion Friday a lot and all sorts of different things, when you're talking about a pants with a design on them being an overt act for a RICO conspiracy, just blows my mind.
Yep. Yeah. So, okay. So I should jump ahead to the next part of the question, which is, how did he get into the case? So let me see, the case was charged in May of 2022. And it was re-indicted in August of 22. And then he took a guilty plea. This is really the genesis of all of the drama in this case with respect to Antonio. He took a guilty plea in December of 2022. And it was for probation. I'll get the details. There were 2 counts that he was charged on. One was the RICO, and then there's also a gun charge, which I have a lot to say about, but we'll just assume that he's guilty of it for now. The plea agreement, and this is the plea agreement that came up at trial, he was going to have a 15-year probation on count 1, and then on the other count, they were going to withhold sentencing until after he testified, basically. And that's the version of events that came out at trial. Sentencing was withheld, basically. But Judge Glanville said no to that agreement, correctly, because he's completely right about this. You can't not sentence somebody on a charge and then wash your hands of the case, because you need to have a sentence on account before you can let somebody go or dispose of the case. And so there was subsequently an oral plea agreement that was entered into between the state and Antonio. And the state agrees and admits this. And that oral plea agreement was the final plea agreement between Antonio and the state. And that never came out at trial. And
an oral plea, okay.
Yep, that was the final agreement. So some of you may remember that if you watched the trial, Antonio was getting questions like, what changed? They were giving him the written plea agreement that was rejected by Judge Glanville. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. He was given a copy of the written plea agreement that Judge Glanville rejected, and he was being asked, what changed between today and when you signed this that makes you not understand that this is your plea agreement? Or, why are you disavowing this plea agreement? It's because it was the wrong plea agreement, basically. And that's not in dispute anymore. That's been settled in the courts.
Was there how long was it there was a disagreement that Adrian Love had sent the wrong agreement for signature? How long did that go on? That was denied by them.
How long did what go on?
The wrong plea agreement issue.
weeks.
Weeks. That's what I'm trying to get at.
She wanted, so she asked, he was on the stand for 3 days, and most of that was being asked about the plea agreement. And then you may remember his lawyer was also called to the stand and was asked about the plea agreement. And nobody seemed to realize what had happened. But there was just this misunderstanding about why there was this disagreement as to the terms of the plea agreement, because nobody actually realized that the final version was an oral agreement.
So specifically, when we get to his testimony, I know he was on the stand forever, it seemed. What were the issues that led to, quote, violating the agreement and ended up, putting him back in jail, prison?
Right.
And was that what before that did everyone agree that there was an oral plea agreement, not the written one? That was the wrong one by that time?
Not at that point. This was that only came out in the last couple of like two or 3 months ago. So in our appellate briefing, we said this was clearly, you guys don't know what you're talking about. You have the wrong plea agreement. And in response, the state said they didn't really fight us on it. I don't think they realized the significance of what they were admitting, but they said, oh yeah, we had an oral plea agreement. So that was just in the last 2 or 3 months that the state has conceded that point. But at trial, the state really wanted to get the plea agreement into evidence. And what's interesting is that Antonio's guilty plea hearing was recorded. It was on, Law and Crime or Court TV or whatever. And the state presented an edited video of that guilty plea hearing that cuts off, like they cut it off right before Judge Glanville says, the exact quote is, you just can't do it this way. So you don't see the video that Adrian Love presented omitted the last third 40% of the guilty plea hearing, and she didn't show any of the part where the actual terms are presented.
Right.
Then the question was at the testimony, right? It was so there in one of the versions of the plea agreements, there were factual acknowledgments, and Antonio supposedly agreed to. He said, I'm going to testify to these things being true. And some of them are just objectively aren't true, but he told, as far as I can tell, he told the truth, and he didn't repeat these factual acknowledgments that were written by the state. And so in failing to testify in accordance with those factual acknowledgments, that's supposedly the breach of the terms of his sentence, I guess. Yes.
And so that triggered a how many year sentence with that alleged violation?
Yeah. Judge Whitaker sentenced him to 5 years for not testifying in accordance with the factual acknowledgments. One of the interesting things about the negotiation of the plea agreement is that the first communications happened in November of 2022. I think it was like November 17th was the first emails. And then Adrian Love didn't follow up until after the close of business on December 27th, when the plea hearing was on the 28th. So and Antonio he didn't get bond. So he was in Rice Street trying to negotiate these factual acknowledgments in less than 24 hours. And, if you're trying to get to an inaccurate set of factual acknowledgments in a plea agreement, that's not really how you do it. Because, you wait till the last minute, you're going to mess stuff up. That's not really a legal thing. That's just a common sense thing.
Yeah. So move ahead now to where we are, because you have some interesting news that is positive. Everybody's wondering so much about, he's been tossed in prison/jail. Yep. And what's happened since, and where are we?
Yeah. So the first thing was in April of 24. This is a whole separate issue. So this goes back to the indictment and the re-indictment. There was an indictment in, like I said, May of 22. And then they wanted to add some charges in August. And so Bonnie Willis is the one who filed this. She filed a motion to dismiss the original indictment. And she said that everything in the indictment is going to be carried over to the re-indictment. We're just adding some new stuff. But that's not what happened. They actually changed a bunch of stuff in the body of the indictment, but they didn't change the face of the indictment. So if you just look at the front page, it'll look exactly the same. It'll look right. But then if you dig beneath the surface, they actually changed a bunch of the substance of the indictment. And they changed the offense on count 30, which is the second offense I mentioned, from an offense called 131 to 133. You don't need to know what they are. But one's much more serious. But they didn't actually change like the substance of the allegations. They didn't change what he allegedly did. And so what happened is he's convicted. He pleads guilty to the more severe offense, but they didn't actually allege, that he did the acts constituting the more severe offense. So he essentially was tricked into pleading guilty to a crime that he wasn't even alleged to have done. It would be like he pled guilty to murder when he was charged with battery. That's not actually what it is, but that's essentially what happened. And this was the first thing I noticed about his case. And he got a 15-year consecutive sentence when he should have gotten a 5-year sentence. And so we got that one vacated. So his sentence has already been reduced by 10 years. We filed a motion to vacate his illegal sentence, and that was granted by Judge Whitaker. So his sentence has already been knocked down by 10 years.
All right.
We wanted to withdraw our guilty plea to both counts, which we think we should have been able to do, because a lot of the plea negotiations were predicated on the assumption that he did have that 15-year sentence hanging over his head. And so he was negotiating to try to knock down the 15 years.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, right? Like you're going to go
Right.
after the
No, absolutely. It makes sense, right?
So,
Absolutely.
It's hard to negotiate away the death penalty when it's really not hanging over your head.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. But you think you are, so you.
Yep. Yeah. He got, and even his setting aside the probation stuff, his sentence was really on the high end of the defendants in the case, because there were a lot of people that had kind of similar charges. He got 15 years on the RICO when most people were getting like 5. Mm-hmm. And you can get 15 years, but it wasn't typical at all in the case.
So he's looking at 5 total, but he's already been in for how much, and when is he likely to get out?
But he gets before that he gets revoked, right?
Yes, he did get revoked. Oh, I got lots to say about that one. So here's part of the problem. There's also a problem with the sentence. Basically, what happened is, I don't know who it was, probably like the court's administrative guy. In the sentence, he basically copy and pasted the plea agreement and then just made that the sentence. But it doesn't really work that way. You can't really do that. And so a bunch of the stuff that should have been in the sentence wasn't actually in the sentence. I'm trying to simplify this. And basically, Attorney Adam Abate wrote the petition or motion to revoke probation and basically ignored all of the issues in the sentence. If you read it really carefully, you realize he doesn't actually say that Antonio had any conditions of probation. It's very artfully written to avoid saying that specifically, but he was revoked for not testifying in accordance with the factual acknowledgments, which actually aren't even in the sentence. So
I mean, this is a nightmare. You can't even write this stuff. But Judge Whitaker revoked him, right? If I recall,
she did. The order says she didn't. She revoked him for the violations as alleged in the petition. You're supposed to make a specific finding of what the violations are, but the revocation was just as alleged in the petition. So we don't know exactly what the finding was, but can I talk about my favorite topic real quick?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So during the revocation hearing, virtually everything the state said was wrong, but there was a witness who was a random probation officer. They could have a different, more modern name for them now, but basically the probation officer, probation supervision officer. And she was called as a witness. She wasn't named or sworn in. She just kind of showed up on Zoom. And she read through Antonio's criminal history, and most of it was wrong. Most glaring one was she said that he was, remember the 2015 case that I mentioned earlier, the one that's kind of underlying his involvement in the case. She said that he was convicted of I don't want to try a word that isn't going to get you in trouble on YouTube, but it was a sex crime basically. But he wasn't. She gave a specific case number, said it was battery. Basically the R word, that he had been convicted of that. And he just hasn't been. He hasn't even been accused of it. It was a fight at a club and then a shooting was in that case, allegedly. But she read out that he had been convicted of this. And this was before Judge Whitaker sentenced him to the 5 years. So I would assume that probably factored into her consideration. But there are a bunch of other things too. She said that he had previously been convicted of a specific firearms offense, and he had not. She also mixed up. So this goes back a long ways, but there's another guy named Anthony Sledge. And he was
no
born,
relation.
No.
Okay. All right.
But she also started reading out convictions of this guy named Anthony Sledge, who I did a lot of work to confirm that they're actually different people. But she read out like a possession of cocaine for Anthony Sledge, and one or two other offenses that belong to Anthony Sledge rather than Antonio Sledge. And, I've checked on, usually millions of people watch this video of him being called, these horrible things. And it's just completely, I have no idea where it came from. Like the Anthony Sledge stuff, I at least know where that came from, but the battery, I have no idea where that came from. That's just completely false. And it takes 2 seconds to check.
And so this is being presented. The court, in this case, the Honorable Paige Whitaker, she's taking this all in and factoring it into her ultimate decision as to how to punish any revocation, right? But there's no consequence of this false information?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the witness who read out the false conviction, she was clearly just reading a report, which isn't another problem. But I don't know where that came from. I don't think she was involved in drafting that. There's somebody named, I'm not going to make that accusation. There are some people in the Fulton District Attorney's Office who have who have previously been probation officers and have worked for the APD and have worked for the District Attorney's Office. It's Marissa Viverito. I'll say it. I don't care.
There you go. Oh,
so she's worked for all three.
Is she the detective?
Yes, the two-time police.
The one that
dropout,
didn't want to be
Viverito.
seen on camera, but has her, Facebook page with certain accolades that she's received. That one.
Yes. You know what's funny? The picture. This is funny. The picture that people got in trouble for posting. One of them is the source of it is actually the Fulton County DA website.
That's what I thought.
I know
we
did it, and I can't remember where we. Yeah, we did it, and it's there she is in all her glory. But you watch the trial, and no, we can't. We can't show her.
Yeah,
no, we can't.
So I'm not saying she had something to do with it, but her fingerprints are on a lot of these things. And if having the benefit of going through several years of her testimony, she changes her story very frequently.
No, she was unbelievable on the stand. But there's a parade of those folks, and they all come from, of course, Ms. Fonnie Willis's office.
Typical man.
Yeah, that's right. And so I'm not surprised. You just get numb to all of the inappropriate activity that seems to be coming down from that office.
Yeah.
Now he's in prison now. But you told me something as we're getting ready for the show that I'm stunned by. Tell us.
Oh wait, what was that?
He's in prison and he's in.
Oh yeah, he was in solitary confinement for I think almost exactly a year, supposedly for his own protection. Because if you say that, you can't challenge it because it's if it were punitive, maybe I could do something about it. But it's just for his own protection. Mm. There's another YSL defendant that's been in solitary for just about 3 years.
3 years.
Again, for his own protection. And the other problem with that is it's hard to become parole eligible if you're in solitary, even if you haven't done anything wrong. Because a lot of times you have to take certain classes, do all of these things that you can only really do if, you're just a normal, for lack of a better term, inmate.
So
they
those
can
aren't
keep you in
allowed,
solitary.
unless if you're in Gen Pop, you get to see those options. If you're in solitary, they don't even offer those things that you would need to qualify for parole. That seems to be fair. So where are we? Where are we now? When I just got to know when Mr. Sledge is getting out with all of these permutations, wranglings, changes, mistakes. What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of different possibilities. I think it'll be this year. I think it's a matter of when this year. I mean, we have a pending appeal that we finished briefing in, I think, October. So I think I'd expect a decision on that maybe in a month or so, maybe 6 weeks, hopefully. The state did concede on one of our points.
And that would be determinative, or would that just, what, an issue would be resolved, but what's the bottom line?
No, that depending on, it could be a couple of different things. It could be just a vacatur of the entire, we could just go back to square one where they vacate the convictions and we're heading back to trial.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
That's definitely a possible outcome. There could also be kind of a two-step one where they say, okay, if you want to withdraw your guilty plea, you can. And then we would also be going back to square one. They could say, no, we could lose. And then I think he'll still probably be out relatively, maybe this year on parole, because he's still parole eligible. But it's just a mess.
I know when I was looking at the revocation hearing, which is like all bound up in different ads and all, so I didn't want to show it. Paige Whitaker said, well, you have to have respect and honor the system because you didn't testify, and then we have to take that into consideration. There's no way to go back to her and say, hey, look at all this stuff, for lack of a better S word, that I can say on the air. That's wrong, or it's just better to be in the appeal process. Jim?
Yeah. I mean, the state the issue they concede. Antonio should have gotten a hearing on the 10. Remember, they said the 15-year to 5-year sentence issue. He should have gotten a hearing at that point, but he didn't. So the state's conceded that Judge Whitaker didn't. How can I put this? She didn't honor Antonio's Fourth Amendment rights to a hearing. So the state's already conceded that there's a Fourth Amendment violation on that point. So I think that once we can get all the information in front of Judge Whitaker, she'll see things differently. But there's just so many defendants, and
I can see why you have happily angry Esquire. I mean, I'm not sure I would be happy about being angry. I mean, I'd be like angry Esquire.
Yeah, I'm that sometimes too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
you got to get in there in front of Judge Whitaker before she moves on.
Right. That's the other thing too, right?
You have to program somebody else. At least she knows the case at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
hopefully there'll be some good news, like a release date, a parole date, something, and we'll have you back on, Jim, and you can bring us up to speed, because I know a lot of folks think he got the most raw deal of those involved in the YSL storm.
Yeah, man, there are some. Also, my last thought I'll say is maybe two quick things. One is, there was so much attention on kind of the big name defendants, but there was some stuff done to some of the guys that you never heard about because they were essentially kicked down the road to the second trial. Some of the stuff that was done to those guys is crazy. If you ever want to do a second show about that, I can talk about some of those guys.
Oh, I think we want to. We want to do a second show, and
these are YSL guys that were just less well known, I guess.
Yeah, so there just weren't enough public defenders, so they couldn't get everybody a lawyer, and so they severed. I think
they ran out of public defenders.
Yeah, they just couldn't find anybody. So I charged 28 people at a time. You're gonna Atlanta's not a big place.
See that. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
and she's still using the RICO statute, right? Fannie Willis, despite all her problems and all the cases she's lost, she's still using that RICO statute and indicting people.
She's trying to.
Yeah, it's going well so far. All right, well, keep in mind those new stories, and we'll have you back on to give us an update on some of the craziness that continues. And those are all Fulton County, I'm guessing.
Yeah, mostly Fulton County. I mean, I live in California. I've only been to Atlanta twice. So, I mean, I don't know how I got mixed up in this.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I think for Antonio, it's lucky that you did, because you really have taken this on and shown some things that I don't know how all of this stuff could have slipped by, but I gathered there was so much happening in that case. It did. And clients generally don't read, and no matter what you say, you and I both know when you have these 40-page plea agreements, and they generally don't read. They rely on their attorney to talk to you about that, and even the attorneys sometimes don't understand, because paragraph 2, maybe you've forgotten what it is by the time we got to paragraph 47 or 147 or whatever it was.
For sure.
It was just outrageous. It was just outrageous.
Yeah. And if you mixed in the normal mistakes with some wrong intent, you've got a real mess.
But as a result of you, I think Ashley Merchant with a bait, right? She didn't bring him in to testify because she was concerned that he was going to get the same treatment, and then they'd revoke his sentence. So I think that everyone learned from Monk's case that, hey, I ain't dealing with these people. I'm not going on that stand.
Yeah, no, for sure. Man, I could do Fulton stories. And I've only been there twice, but I have a million Fulton stories for you. You should have my partner, like I mentioned before we went on air. You should have my partner, Tiffany Adams, come on. She's incredible. She was a public defender in Fulton County. Now she's a private defense lawyer.
Gotta have some stories. Maybe we'll have a tag team with you guys on next time.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. And we'll add Doug. If we can try to add Doug to the next.
Oh my gosh.
He was always fun. That'd be great. So
he's busy, man.
he's running around.
He's like trying. It was his first murder case, and now he's like the murder king. He's like trying murder cases every week.
I would call the murder king. Let's not.
He had to do. I saw him post this. He had to do an arraignment that they wouldn't let him do remotely, and he had to drive 3 hours to some remote area of southern Georgia to do a 5-minute arraignment and then drive back. Just come on, folks. Let's not abuse people.
Yeah, you know who might be the murder king was Keith Adams. This is a little known fact. During the YSL trial, Keith Adams actually did a murder trial. He snuck away for like a week and won a murder case during the YSL trial.
Oh my gosh.
That guy's the best.
Unbelievable. Okay. All right,
man.
Jim. Thank you for answering me. So thanks for coming on. We're so excited, and we can't wait to have you on again.
And we appreciate you in the chat when you're not on in person. So,
I'll be there.
Please join. Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Take care, man.
Hey.
Okay.
Bye.
That's that case. It's unbelievable what has happened, what is happening, and apparently what might happen going forward. The wreckage continues, right?
You can't even imagine all these things are wrong and no one would own up to it, and things people get on the stand, and then he gets revoked, and then he's in solitary, and he's still got to appeal. And thank God for Jim. I mean, he's done a great job for him, a great job.
Yeah. And I was just doing the math in my head that assuming they don't just start back at zero and have whole new trials, he could. The timing would suggest he gets out this year for time served on the 5 years. But
right,
who knows? Who
knows?
Okay, so shall we move on from the the bizarre to the sublime? Let's go to.
What do you want to do next? We have so much going on.
Let's do the I think. The AI version of the Caneiro case.
And then
we have two. Let's talk about this first of all. We're talking about the New Jersey versus Paul Caneiro case. We were in there yesterday. We had Charles on to talk about, the everything from the courtroom to the judge and everything in between. This case, I never thought I would be as intrigued by it for the reason that I am, because it's a quadruple murder case, children involved, 2 fires. Financial issues that may or may not have motivated the defendant, Paul Caneiro.
Right.
That isn't what has intrigued me so far. It is the presentation of the case and the issues between the judge and primarily defense counsel, occasionally prosecution as well, where they're getting into it. This is one of the most proactive judges I've ever seen. This is Judge Mark Lemieux.
Yeah.
He ain't shy.
And as Chad Giuliano said to us yesterday, He used to be the first assistant prosecutor. So, but he said he's a very fair judge. And I think we saw that. By the way, it sounds like he's getting sick. Day 1, fine. Day 2, fine. Day 3, he coughed like once or twice and he apologized to the jury. Today, I mean, if I were there, I'd be just putting my mask back on because poor guy was coughing. And I felt bad for him. But he's amazing. But yeah, I know that's what started intriguing me was not only because it's my home county, not only because I've been in that courtroom before. It's been was the tweet that I put up earlier today, as you know, and we could talk about it afterwards. Because last week when I was at Harvard, all right, sitting with all the sitting with some former federal prosecutors and all, we got into a discussion about AI. And in the federal courts, Michael, as you know, you really can't use AI. And if you do, you have to sign an affidavit. And they have AI software that looks at different things and it gives you a percentage. For instance, this document was 22% likely written by AI. And, they may give and that's other document was 99% written by AI. They may give a break the first time, but if they get one attorney that has like 5 documents that were like 90% written by AI, then they get referred to ethics issues, right? Because especially if they haven't disclosed that they used AI. And we got into a situation that it's going to be malpractice in the future. However, we think not to have AI. Well, today I'm listening in the few minutes I get in and AI rears its head. Let's talk about it.
In a weird way, in a very
weird way.
Bizarre
Yeah.
way. So on the stand, we have one of the inspectors.
Fire marshal for Ocean Township, where the fire of Paul Caneiro and his wife and his daughter live.
Right. Not the Colts Neck fire.
Not the Colts Neck fire. This is the fire marshal. This is the fire marshal. Okay.
Yes. And so standing up there with her white trimmed jacket.
Kim Kardashian. Well, I think it was more than that. I think it was more like a Kim Kardashian look.
Is it? I'm not sure what the hell's going on there. But luckily she had that because prosecution attorney Nicole Wallace has I still think a similar look, especially in the context of moving around the courtroom. I'm not looking at headshots, but her suit today is all black. So I could tell who was doing what. Voice I'm getting used to, but I saw the white racing stripes on Monica Must-Alone. Just tell folks what happened with this guy and his preparation for trial.
Well, let me actually add to the stage the tweet I made because it was really it summed it up, and it said Chat AI entered the courtroom because the township fire marshal, right? He wrote a report 7 years ago. 7 years ago, all right? And he wanted to check it out to see if there was anything that he left out, anything that would be possibly a defense attorney, his words, could use to cross-examine him on it. So he puts it through Chat GPT. He actually mentions it. A great announcement for Chat GPT. And it gives him answers, right? And it gives him answers and all. And one of the things he wanted to know whether, because he thought that Paul Caneiro was telling the truth to him on his interview with him, the questions he was asking him. But Chat GPT, he asked, is he telling the truth? And Chat GPT said no. So he disagreed with Chat GPT, right? I mean, in a good way, So if you're the defense attorney, sit down. This is great,
all of that would have been interesting
fine.
In and of itself.
But what happened is it was a draft. It was just for his use. He accidentally, because they had a second meeting, because it took so long for this to get to trial, that when he had a second meeting, he gave his draft, his work product over in documents to the prosecutor's office, right? And then, of course, it gets bait stamps and it gets handed over to the defense. And he never intended it to be handed over to the defense. So the question became a number of things. One, the use of AI. Number two, the fact that he thought that Paul Caneiro was telling the truth, whereas ChatGPT didn't. And there we are. Off we were to the races. So that's just setting it up, Michael.
Okay, so get your little picture out of there. I'll put this video up and we will see how this played out when effectively the defense attorney is kind of cross-examining Chat GPT. and the judge has to get involved, and it was a mess.
To know what's on his hand when he says he didn't see it. I'm not really sure, so I'm going to sustain the objection.
Sir, you indicated that you were sitting in the car with him. He says he didn't really hit it, and you didn't really inspect it. But is there a reason why, if this is an important factor as to whether or not a fire could be potentially set, and you're trying to figure out what's happening, why you wouldn't just inspect his hand as a trained EMT?
I was not inspecting that fire as an incendiary fire or as a suspicious fire. All I know is I was collecting data, and I know there was fire on the outside of the house. I know that there was a gas can next to the house, next to the garage, which is not uncommon. A burnt tip on a gas can is also not uncommon. And I can't, all I know is there was two sets. There was two areas that looked like there were fire. One is obvious.
Okay. So your testimony then is that you were there just to collect data. You had no idea that you were dealing with any suspicious fire or intentionally set fire or anything like that.
I did not start to test any hypothesis at that point.
Okay, that's the guy. Okay, so they're talking about injuries and his process. Then we get to, let me find the spot here.
And the injury, let me just interrupt you.
His hand?
Hold on a second.
We'll talk about it in a second. I do have a slide with the injury.
Did you brief him on?
Yeah, it looks kind of like a bruise to me, but anyway.
This is great you're doing this, Michael, because this is really.
And also the county fire marshal that you called out, right?
Yes.
We got a little more we can get past.
You didn't.
The question, and he answered. I was probably looking at his hands. Yeah, but we were in the car, and I didn't examine his hands in any way. No.
Okay. So I'm going to show you again what was marked as D82.
Okay.
And I have a question about it because here, this is what you signed, right? This was the AI report.
Yep.
That you were accepting for preparation.
I was just using it as a resource.
Using it as a resource? Because this says, Paul gave inconsistent statements. He had an unexplained burn on his hand and claimed I'm just going to read this first part.
Okay.
Think. He had an unexplained burn on his hand.
Okay.
Are you accepting that as part of your testimony? Like, why is that written there, or are you not agreeing with that? That was the AI.
Well, it's not to disagree or agree. This is what it punched out, and that's what I read. But as far as his hands go, I didn't examine his hands, so I took his word for it. Yeah. So then he wouldn't be giving an inconsistent statement, right? I didn't say he gave inconsistency.
I'm not even sure if this is an AI pushing it out. He's not saying anything.
I didn't. Oh, sorry.
So I'm not sure what the question is. The AI generated these responses to your question?
Yes, sir.
So it's not him saying it. So I sustain the objection.
So that's my question. So when we received this, you're not agreeing with this. These are not your words.
I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with it. I just used it as a resource.
You're not disagreeing with the fact that Paul gave an inconsistent statement? Objection.
I don't think he gave me an inconsistent statement.
He answered it.
Sir, if this says he gave an inconsistent statement and you just said, I don't think he gave an inconsistent statement, that would mean you disagree with this, correct?
It's an AI statement. It is irrelevant what the AI statement. It's an AI statement. It's irrelevant. I'm sustaining the objection. He just told you that this is not his words. It came from a computer. So it's not something that he is saying. It's not even his report. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Judge,
Okay,
can we approach, please?
Sure.
And Michael, when
Where's
they
my
approached
stress
it-
ball when I need it?
Yeah. Yeah, she did the right thing by saying, "Can we approach it?" But the problem was that he was helping her. He was saying it was not a burn. AI was saying it was
Yes,
a burn.
and
For her, it's not a burn. He said it was kind of like black smush. It's like, I forget what they called it, indicating that it wasn't even a damage on the hand that he was looking at, and she doesn't get it.
No, he's helping her by saying, I don't think your client gave an inconsistent statement.
Right.
Okay, so after the AI issue, it didn't get better. So this is a moment when, again, they're still really talking about the burned hand. That's really kind of the
and I have a picture of that after. Right.
Yeah, the topic they're really getting into here, but it gets worse. I really can't explain.
Yes or no?
Yes.
And when you did, he says to you, no, it wasn't a burn. It's not a burn. I hit it on something, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you or did you not inspect his hand at that point in time?
Objection. Asked and answered.
I'll allow it. Go ahead. It was asked, but I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Did you look at his hand at that time to ascertain whether or not it was in fact a burn mark?
I did not physically, I don't look at his hand. I remember in the car, asked him, did you burn your hands? He said no. That was it. And that's how we left it.
Okay, so is there a reason why in your investigation, and by the way, you've been an EMT since 1992, correct?
97 EMT. Yeah.
97?
97 was EMT.
Okay, so 1997, you've been an EMT since then. What does EMT stand for?
Emergency medical technician.
So you're trained in recognizing injuries and treating them.
Objection.
Tell me.
What is the relevance of this?
I'm not really sure where you're going. He's saying it's not a burn mark and he didn't look at the hand. So trying to establish a foundation for him being an EMT to know what's on his hand when he says he didn't see it, I'm not really sure. So I'm going to sustain the objection.
Sir, you indicated that you were sitting in the car with him. He says he didn't really hit it and you didn't really inspect it. But is there a reason why, if this is an important factor as to whether or not a fire could be potentially set and you're trying to figure out what's happening, why you wouldn't just inspect his hand as a trained EMT?
I was not inspecting that fire as an incendiary fire or as a suspicious fire. All I know is I was collecting data and I know there was fire on the outside of the house. I know that there was a gas can next to the house, next to the garage, which is not uncommon. A burnt tip on a gas can is also not uncommon. And I can't, all I know is there was two areas that looked like they were fire. One is obvious.
Okay. So your testimony then is that you were there just to collect data. You had no idea that you were dealing with any suspicious fire or intentionally set fire or anything like that.
I did not start to test any hypothesis at that point. Because I didn't do the investigation.
What do you think Paul Caneiro is thinking?
Let me just stop right there.
If you're
was
not
initially represented by my law firm, my partners, my former partners, Mitchell Ansell was a great defense attorney in Monmouth County. As I said, this is my county. I know I know the players, I know the layout, and all. And he had to get out because of a conflict of interest, right? Which is why we actually had Chaz Giuliano on yet last night to also knows the play out. But they are really good attorneys, and the public defenders are pretty good attorneys too. But this case may just be, shall we say, a little bit beyond how you question. I mean, having just come back from teaching how you cross-examine, posture, attitude, preparation, never ask a question, and so, but, and I heard that.
I don't have to be quite as kind. She's horrible. She is horrible, and she is not helping her client in any way. Let me just continue to play just this last little bit before the judge erupts again.
If you're not investigating a suspicious fire, is there a reason why, when you're speaking to the other officers on scene, you say, who was running around with the gas can? The father? Why did you say that then?
I don't remember saying that.
You don't remember saying that? Sir?
How long will the judge wait while she looks for those words to impeach him? And does she have them?
It should be right
So I'm
there.
going to approach you with what's been marked for identification as D103. This is a transcript of when you were on scene. Their officers wearing body-worn cameras, correct? Yes. And when the officers are wearing body-worn cameras, you understand that means that they're recording what's happening.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Okay. And during the course of you being on scene, you spoke to a variety of officers that were uniformed, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to show you a transcript of one of the body-worn camera recordings. And as you can see, there's a legend on the front. And FMF stands for Fire Marshal Flanagan. That's you, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to direct your attention to this page here, and specifically line 9. And if you want to just read that and then look up.
Sure. Yeah. How old are the kids? Who was running
No,
around?
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Read it to yourself.
I'm sorry.
And then look up.
It's like an elementary school teacher. Look up when you're done. Pencils down.
Okay.
Okay. So does that refresh your recollection as to why you said who's running around with the gas can? The father?
Impeachment versus refreshing
I
recollection
don't
too.
recall that at all.
You don't recall saying that?
No.
Okay.
I said it obviously, but I don't recall.
All right, now
Why
stop.
I said-
Okay, Michael, stop right there. Okay, she's confused impeachment from refreshing recollection, but he gives it to her. He says, "Obviously, I said it." So now you get to say what it is that was so helpful to you that you said that was the impeachment, and it just like, I'm gonna
Well,
just have a dot. I'm in the movie theater eating dots.
It's what the judge reacts to this, and we'll be done with this in just a second.
Whose body-worn camera was that, just so we're clear?
Marino's.
Marinos, thank you.
It ends in 734.
Okay, thank you.
The judge is going through a lot of water. I think this is the part where he's about to tell her, and maybe I mistimed the time code, but he will accuse her of putting words in the witness's mouth.
Right. I think you're at it.
Yeah, this is you're the cross-exam queen. This is the antithesis of what cross-exam should be. It's meandering and clunky, disorganized, and it needs to be surgical.
Did you just say that you're not sure why you made that remark about the father running around with the gas can?
I
Never asked the question.
I don't understand what the context was during that conversation.
Okay. Well, let's break it. There's a gas can, right? You took photos of it.
I did.
Correct?
I did.
And when you took photos, one of the things that you took a photo of was the gas can.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? And that's because it was in some fashion significant to your investigation. Right?
It was mentioned, and I documented it.
You document. Well, you're not documenting random things, right? You're documenting the things that are relevant to your investigation and why you are there. Correct?
What I'm being told, I'm documenting. Yes, and what I see, I'm documenting.
Being told by whom?
By the police officer.
By the police officers. Okay. So the police officers are telling you what's important to document, and you're documenting that.
They're not saying what's important to document. They're just telling me that these items are there, and I should look at them.
Okay. And are you surmising that what they're telling you is important, or what they're telling you to document, it's because it's important to them?
Could be. Yeah. That happens all the time.
Right. So they tell you to take a photo of the gas
They
can.
did not tell me to take a photo of the gas can.
No, you wanted to take a photo of the gas can?
I took a photo. I documented what was on that side of the house.
Okay. And you actually took several photos of the gas can, correct?
I believe I took 2. One was lying on its side outside the garage, and one was standing up inside the garage door.
Okay. And when you took those photos,
All right, I can't take anymore. I can't take it anymore.
Yeah,
once was bad enough, but here's what happened. Ultimately, the judge said, "Hey, don't put words in his mouth." And this is being said in front of the jury.
In front of the jury,
right? What does she do? She doubles down by circling back, going through another document with this witness and saying, "I'm not putting words in your mouth, am I?" The judge halts everything and calls everybody up to the bench to basically say, don't try and contradict me in my own courthouse after I've corrected you just because you're trying to save your ass in front of, I'm telling you the words, we don't know what they were saying, but that's what the gist of it, I think, was, back off here. Your job is not to save your ass by throwing the court, into the street. So, I mean, it's been unbelievable to me how long it takes her to get absolutely nothing from a
Nothing. And she had, if I was writing that, she had 5 terrific points and she could have done them and gotten them because he wasn't fighting her on anything. Even on, if it was there, I must have said it, right? And what was interesting about this, he's there. It's a Caneiro thing in the middle of and I think it may happen on the next witness. They get a call that there's another fire in Colts Neck. Remember the layout here. There's a fire, and we don't really know it when the way this story is being told, in Colts Neck, where his brother Keith and his wife are killed, and the 2 kids, a son 11 and a daughter 6, who are found clearly running away, and the daughter gruesome how she's killed, his niece, and the real question is, could an uncle kill his niece the way that we were going to hear it? And so then he supposedly, according to the prosecution theory, he comes to his house to try to cover up and say people were trying to go after us. He lights his house, according to them, on fire. It's starting in the garage with a little burn on the porch, but really he did hurt his Porsche, right? And there's a fire there, and his wife and daughter are not in the house at that time. So that's how this all comes about. And so this fire marshal doesn't even know about the Colts Neck fire at the time he's documenting this fire, which he's there in Ocean Township for. And the whole thing about the hand, let me see if I can get the hand to the stage.
Yeah, these fires are about 5 hours apart, give or take.
Right. Here's the hand, and he said, "I don't see that as a burn." And
it looks like a bruise to me. But
it looks like was something in the middle there. Could it be a
maybe
little wound?
Maybe a puncture or something.
Puncture. Yeah, and he gave that to her. That he didn't get burned. I mean, he gave her so much. He gave her the fact that gas cans are normal in a garage. He gave her the fact that he must have said that he believed Caneiro's story. He gave the fact that he didn't like ChatGPT. He gave her all this stuff. I mean, she should have been up there 5 minutes, sit down, and there you are. Boom, 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 boom. And said she was, and people, aren't all Alan Jackson. Okay, they're not all Alan Jackson. Right?
That is true.
This is true. but all over, and it's every, and the movement and the this and the that. And if I'm sitting there as a client, I'm like,
I'm like, I've never seen this before, but here's what could happen in this case. Ready for this?
Yeah. What?
They come back. Jury comes back. I'm the judge now. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I understand you have a verdict. It's unanimous. Okay. If you pass the verdict form to the bailiff, I'll take a look at it. Apparently, you've added the defense attorney to the guilty verdict somehow. I'm not sure how. I've never seen that before, but I could see it happening in this case.
Well, anyhow, so to making a county ASL, and have you ever encountered such a whimsical attorney in the courtroom? Oof. No, we've encountered a lot of different attorneys over our years in the courtroom.
That's a very kind way to put it.
But and these are, remember, this is a very difficult case. I mean, she's trying to do the best with what she has, with what's going on here. And the best thing that she's going to have going on, quite frankly, in my opinion, is this the kind of person that could kill his niece the way you're going to hear she was killed, the 6-year-old? And I know, because I have sources, all right, this is my county, I have sources that there are people who believe that he did not do this crime because he's not that type of person, because he loved these kids. He loved the niece and the nephew. So, but you can't tell because, well, maybe this is a strategy. You hate the defense attorney so much you forget about him. I don't know,
Yeah.
But Darren Gilbert, Darren
Yeah.
Gilbert's going to go down there Tuesday for another case, and he'll stop in, and then you and I are going to go down there, and I'll meet Chaz.
I just got to
maybe
see
the
this
week
jury
after.
now, because I
Now we
got
have
to
to see the
see how
jury,
they're
right.
reacting to
And you
what's
should
going
see the
on here.
houses. And you should see the houses where they are and the relation to the houses, Ocean Township and all. They're they're pretty far away. They're not. This is not a close, situation here. And it's amazing that the fire and I don't know the time period, but that they're invested. They're starting with this fire in his house. By the way,
and it
Joy,
was
thank
first.
you.
His house was
By the way,
first. Go
thank
ahead.
you, Joy. I'm wearing denim, so thank you very much. I'm not in a snazzy suit tonight. I'm wearing denim. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I think it was noonish was the first fire, and then it was 5-ish the next one, but plenty of time to travel. It's not that far.
Yeah.
And the one fire for the Keith Caneiro's home, where he's killed and his wife and the 2 kids, that thing's burned down basically.
Right. And that's in Cold
but not
Snack.
Paul
Right.
Caneiro's house. That was damaged.
Hence, we have titled this "Slaughter in Springsteen Country" because Bruce Springsteen has an equestrian farm there. Jon Stewart has a Save the Animals farm there. A former attorney that I worked with on the Jason Williams case with lives in Colts Neck. His wife is a judge in Monmouth County. It's a very upscale area. It's right next to Freehold, by the way, where the courthouse is. For 4 years, I drove through Colts Neck, the back roads to get to Freehold to be an assistant prosecutor at that courthouse. So, but this is an interesting case, Michael.
For many reasons, and none, like I said, some I had never anticipated. What you should look at when you see this woman in action, and I apologize for it sounds like I'm bagging on her, but we can learn a lot from her, and just see how she approaches questioning. Half of her questions, maybe more, are simply reiterating what was just testified to on direct.
Some of it not good.
Which you don't want to reinforce and don't need to reinforce. It's just frightening. Anyway, so that will continue.
When you cross, you never start a question with
and
so did or but. Okay, we just I just taught. The reason why I can tell you that is because we just taught this for ingrained the whole week, and I haven't heard. I started keeping a scorecard, at some point, and I know it's a hard case, and I'm going to give it that. It's a very difficult.
It is,
and
we're commenting on the fundamentals of being an attorney. Just so happens it's in the context of this horrible case, and I think she likes being an attorney. I do think that, and I think sometimes that overrides the focus she might need for these cross examinations. Interesting that we talk about. We really don't have a lot of thread of what this story is all about, and that's the prosecution's job. They started with the financial records. They want to prove motivation. They want to go that direction. I don't think maybe this is the master plan by the defense. They are taking so much time on cross and so much bumbling around that it's not helping the prosecution tell their story.
Right.
So I don't know that it's purposeful, but that's what's happening in reality.
Right.
And
we don't have the story. Right. We have no story.
Tomorrow, 2 witnesses out of order.
Are we getting
witnesses
the story?
out? There's going to be 2 witnesses out of order. So the cop that was on the stand at the end of the day is going to cool his heels while they bring in 2 witnesses. I'm assuming calling them out of order suggests they're the defense witnesses. Don't know. Judge didn't explain that. Could have been out of order in the context of the prosecution's case. But if they are defense witnesses, that will be very interesting. And that'll be first thing tomorrow morning. So
no, we'll have to see. I'm going to have to do a little more sleuthing with my sources as to who's coming up next week, because I would like to be in the courtroom when the medical examiner testifies and see Caneiro's reaction to, and I'm sure they're going to not put a lot of those pictures in because
not a lot, but there will be some.
It'll be pretty. It's going to be a pretty gruesome. A pretty gruesome day, obviously, with regard to that.
And
but it's a very interesting case.
At the end of the day, some of the testimony was the finding of Keith Caneiro on the lawn, that whole process.
And remember, the defense is some other dude did it. The other dude being the brother of Keith and Paul. Okay, that's
who apparently has some alibi, but again, that's the defense case. They're going to have to prove that this person was truly available and able to commit the crime.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Now, we were going to go and look at just a quick clip from Uvalde, which we've been keeping an eye on. And, the case itself, which is against Adrian Gonzalez, who was the first police officer on the scene. He's been accused now in 29 cases of child endangerment, child endangering. So there's been this real struggle in my mind over how much they can really tell about the damage and the deaths of these kids without it just overwhelmingly prejudicing the defendant. They had body cam today of Gonzalez, so it gave you a sense of what his involvement was, at least what he was physically doing, which I do think was critical to the case. So if we got a couple of minutes, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's know a couple of minutes with that, and then I
spend
have
a couple of minutes on that, and then we have a Busfield update, don't we? And we have a couple of other items.
Right.
Okay, so let me see if I can bring this up. Just a little bit of this body cam, which gives us more flavor of what was happening that day, and very specifically to this defendant, because I think that's so important for everybody to remember what this case is about. The tragedy we know, but what about this one guy? This is not the guy. This is the one who's laying the foundation for the body cam. And that's it, the Adrian Gonzalez body cam. Here we go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Cam is active.
Come on, I know you're there. I found you before. I find you again. Okay.
They were in the cars.
You brothers are saying that he's possibly in the building on the... Oh shit, shots fired! Get inside! Go, go, go!
Laying on the knees. One female shot in the head.
I'm sorry to interrupt there, but that's kind of an odd dispatch that comes to you.
I thought so too, yes, sir.
A female shot in the head on D Street.
Yes, sir.
But that comes in after you've already made your trip around the elementary school and just before you're going in.
Yes, sir.
South entrance. And is that the first time you'd heard that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Shots fired inside the building, bro!
Every time I see that hallway, it's just a flashback to.
Earlier in your testimony, you said that it was dark.
Yes, sir.
Does it appear that there are lights on?
I don't know if those are lights or skylights.
Okay. But is this the condition that you saw the hallway in?
Yes, sir.
Could you see other officers?
I could see other officers in front of me. Yes, sir.
Thank you. And who are these officers depicted in your body cam?
I believe Adrian Gonzalez and Chief Arroyo.
Thank you.
Well, there's a lot of that. A lot of cops hanging out in the hallway.
What minute is this? This is not 77.
Take over.
Did we just hear the words "get SWAT"? Get SWAT?
Yes, sir.
And who was that conversation between?
I believe it was with Chief Arredondo and Adrian Gonzalez.
Okay.
Whew, that's I mean, it is just brutal. I mean, you're hearing what you're hearing. Those are shots fired.
Shots, I know.
And you have at least a few of the cops already in the hallway, and that includes the defendant, Adrian Gonzalez. And they all basically are saying, we're waiting for somebody to take charge, right? And we know that Police Chief Arredondo is going to be tried as well. He was in charge of the entire 6 police officer force in Uvalde, and arguably more culpable, but he's not being tried first. I'm not quite sure why. Anyway, that's the status on that case that we have been following. And it's primarily, we're not trying to wallow in what was a tragedy that day, but the legal aspect of using an officer's failure to act as the basis for criminal culpability is it's new. And I don't know what's going to happen. You see this, and he's doomed. You see this, if you're in the jury, he's doomed.
But then you have to ask yourself, why isn't every cop doomed?
Of course. And the defense has to make it very clear what he did, which was included helping get kids out of the classroom. He did things, but apparently not the right things or enough of those things, according to the prosecution. So
whatever it is, just a horrible, I don't know how anybody sleeps at night with that case. It's such a horrible case.
Yeah.
Not that any cases, every case is horrible.
You got kids, you got a lot of kids, and
whenever you have kids,
I can't imagine. I see those, posters and the stuff you see in an elementary school hallway. Everybody's seen it. Anybody's had kids, and they've got the pictures from the 4th grade class of Miss Jones, and it's such a surreal juxtaposition of the terror that's going on just feet away from those so innocent drawings that the kids have done. Okay,
let me give you some updates on cases that we are covering.
Do we need to do a rip and read officially here? Should we do that?
No, I don't think
we're beyond that.
Yeah, I think we're.
Do your thing. I got a couple. Go ahead.
By the way, thank you very much, Cooper K5S. You love this channel. We're always classy. Thank you very much for that compliment. We appreciate getting the compliments. We try to bring you content, a lot of good content. I mean, there could be a lot of things we'd be doing that would get, sometimes I think if we skated on and fell and laughed or something, we maybe get more viewers sometimes. But we try to give you good content and not make fun of the content that we're giving you. Although sometimes, we add a little humor into it because it's so difficult. But Timothy Busfield, as we know, we're covering him. He was arraigned in New Mexico. He's got 2 attorneys. One appeared yesterday. Let me just, I have to get rid of, unfortunately, I have to hide that wonderful comment. He'll be coming back the way they don't have grand juries in New Mexico. So the prosecutor will decide whether they can increase the charges. We'll hear that in the future. But the prosecution took, shall we say, they didn't like the fact that he put out a video yesterday saying before he surrendered that he was innocent. I just think that, you better get ready to try a high profile case. I don't know who his attorneys are. Supposedly they're very good. Supposedly the new attorney added today has won Defender of the Year. So we'll see. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But again, it's disturbing because it involves alleged touching of children. And what actually, not that was bad enough, but his wife, Melissa Gilbert, as you know, as I said yesterday, is sort of my neighbor in Sullivan County because we're a small community. I've never met her up there, but people do. But what happened was the reason why this kind of even got blown up more is Megyn Kelly, and I'm not playing the video, but what happened is Megyn Kelly, when she was talking about Jeffrey Epstein, which we'll have to get back to soon too, because I'm still waiting for those documents that were due.
5 million of them.
About a month ago.
Yeah.
We still don't have.
Yeah.
All right. Melissa Gilbert spoke out against Megyn Kelly on the basis she said, well, Epstein wasn't a pedophile because he was into 15-year-olds and instead of 5-year-olds, using the DSM definition of the difference between a pedophile and somebody who just likes younger people to have sex with. So then she went on, and here it is, Melissa Gilbert. You can sit the F down. You've been exposed. Shame on you for that cynical ploy. What she says, Melissa Gilbert went after her because she knew that her husband Busfield was being investigated, which he was. This is an investigation that's been going on for a while about these charges when he was on the set where he was directing, and so Megyn Kelly blew Melissa Gilbert up. Melissa Gilbert then took away her Instagram. And so there's a question as to how much did she know? What did she know? Because her husband apparently had an allegation previously in the past for a 15-year-old, and it was suggested that the 15-year-old had to go to counseling. I don't know what's going to go on here, but whatever it is, it's got everybody hot. And I assume that at some point, whether it's to navigate the media, Melissa Gilbert's going to need a high-profile trial attorney, and not just a media relations firm, a PR firm, which is what I read she had right now. So, but we're going to see more of that come next week, and all. We're going to see more of that come next week. This case is just at the very beginning.
So they had that picture from the courtroom, so it makes me think
there it is.
There may be,
that was actually he was appearing by Zoom. Actually, there was like a Zoom. I don't understand quite how this happened.
It's like the whole
it's a weird Zoom.
Room.
Yeah, but it's a courtroom in the jail apparently. It's kind of like
that's so big.
When you go, if you are arraigning over at Bellevue and you're arraigning somebody who's in Bellevue, there is actually a courtroom in Bellevue Hospital here in New York. So it looks like you're in a courtroom, but you're not in a courtroom. So these things happen, shall we say?
That's just a large space. Of course, they're in an area that has a lot of space.
So there's no bail right now, pending what the prosecutor is going to do, and pending another hearing that will occur, I believe, at the end of next week. I actually calendared. I think it's on for the 29th, and I know we have something else on for the 29th. And also Aiden's hearing on Friday. Next Friday, a week has been moved to 9 o'clock in the morning. I know you're going to go up to
just
Triangle
for
Terror.
me. Thanks a lot.
For you.
But it was so easy to have it later and take a leisurely drive through, the heart of Boston to get there. But all right then. I wonder why they did that. And the court's calendar may be packed to the degree that, or he may think it's going to take longer and doesn't want to run out of time. Who knows? Yeah. Anyway, so we'll do the show from there Thursday night, and then I'll squeak into town. I'll probably do Dedham Thursday night, even though it's not.
And that's the hearing as to whether or not Cosgrove is going to get jilted from the case based on conflict that he may have. I think there's some people said he has to be jilted. That's the Aiden's argument. If he's not jilted, I think it would be only because the judge doesn't want to delay what's going to happen. But we see that Morrissey's not running for re-election, so there's just so much going on, Michael. Two people here are trying to keep the tabs of it while running our own law practices, and it's unbelievable what's happening in the legal world.
I'll bet you, this is just a guess, but if there is a conviction, which Boston, I do think is highly unlikely based on the facts as we know them, and I'm talking now about the ultimate witness intimidation cases, great ground for appeal and the failure to remove Cosgrove from the cases. So, yeah, we'll see. The court may be looking at it long term, saying this is a weak case anyway.
Well, someone just pointed out that it's in Boston. It is in Boston. It is at this. It is.
Yeah, I said I'm.
But Michael's going to be driving to the Triangle of Terror. He calls it the Triangle of Terror, even though it's
Triangle of Terror, Dedham, Stoughton. And no, so I'm going to stay in Dedham, do the show from there that night, Thursday night, and then drive on up 30 minutes to Boston the next morning.
Right.
So just so everybody's got that right. Now, I'm not.
Good luck for you. Right in rush hour.
I'm not going to Dedham and sitting and waiting for the hearing. No, I got that figured out. Okay. I got a couple quick things. If you're done, you done?
Okay. Yes, I'm done.
I've been looking for these Donna Adelson records because she was transferred from Leon County to her new home. It's called Homestead Correctional Institute in Florida. And I asked from both Leon County and from the Department of Corrections. Leon County said we got nothing. So it's clear that the Department of Corrections uses their shuttle bus to get the person home to Homestead. Homestead it's in progress, the request, and it's been 8 days now. So unless they're just totally inept, because they're quick to tell you no. If there's nothing, they're quick to tell you. So I think we will have some stuff coming soon from them, I hope. Yeah. I just thought of this, and I'm throwing it out there. I'm going to do this. Monday is a holiday for most.
Right.
I'm going to do a member only at high noon on Monday, going over Robert Devine. Robert Devine is the former officer with speaking of the triangle of terror there, with the Stoughton police involved in the Sandra Birchmore case. We showed his hearing in which they were trying to remove his certification as a cop. He's now an attorney, and they removed it. Well, he didn't like it so much, so he's filed an appeal. So we're going to go through the appeal. We'll do that for members only on Monday at noon. Then I'll turn it around for the subscription base as a whole, probably the following weekend. But
and at some point, I have to do the second show of Who Killed Stephanie Vilk. I'm still waiting for 2 people to get back to me. So whenever we do that, we do it. Maybe I'll join you.
I wasn't going to obligate you, but obviously, if you want to pop on, it's very interesting.
Yeah,
it's 29 pages of bullshit. So, Missy, I'm just giving you a heads up. Monday, I'm going to do that at noon. Okay, members only. Robert Devine's begging for his recertification. Maybe it affects his pension. I don't know. I mean, you're an attorney now, hopefully moving forward. Maybe he feels he has to appeal it because it may affect his law license.
That's a possibility. That would even be worse.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I have, you have our ending, try to do the right thing. So I have been trying to come up with something to match that before instead of not that I don't want to say subscribe, share, like, and notify, and donate should be another one, because I think we're going to be making our 27th trip up to the North Country, shall we say, and it's expensive every time Michael makes that trip up there. So if you have it in your hearts, send that Cash App, send that Venmo, send that PayPal. Why do I get that job? I don't know, but in any event, to kind of match your try to do the right thing. My assistant of many years gave me this bracelet, which I've put on my Instagram account. And I'm going to have, this will be my tagline. I'm going to actually publish
I'm ready.
it.
I'm ready.
Okay. I'm going to actually publish it if I can get it up here. She believed she could, so she did. Okay. So all of you out there, believe you could, believe you can, and you will.
All right, then. This is Justice Served TV, and we'll see you next time. Oh, tomorrow night? Yeah, tomorrow night, inside the Karen Reed movie. Until then, please try to do the right thing.